Yes, that's indeed so. For Carlin Motorsport, of course, the team for whom Jamie Green now drives. So this enormous field still pouring out of the last corner, lining itself up on the grid. It's great to see Formula 3 looking so strong in Europe. It's a shame we don't have a EuroSeries round in the UK, but maybe next year it'll happen. But this German and French and Italian merger has given us some very good racing so far this year. And somebody in trouble there. A car having to be pushed off the grid, I think, Andrew.
Is that Allinger? I think so.
Could be, you're right, I think, yeah.
Meanwhile, it's going to be interesting. There's a very fast right-hander very soon after the start, and then they come into the very tight station hairpin, and then they start to climb up through the town from that station hairpin. That's tricky to get your braking right for that one. And it is green, it is go! And a brilliant start by Ryan Briscoe.
One car left on the grid, but as we saw on that warming up lap, Lapierre...
Oh, look at Rosberg!
Straight on! Up he goes into the barrier. Oh, dear.
Keke won't be pleased with that. We saw Keke is here, and, well, fundamental error by the 17-year-old young Rosberg.
It's not done too much damage, I don't think. He's going to be able to catch up the field very easily indeed, but he's not going to be able to get past that readily, of course, because there isn't that much room around here. Lapierre, though, as I was saying, has made a bad start. He wasn't that quick away on the green flag lap, and again, he seems to struggle for traction. That means now that Nicolas Lapierre is down in, fourth place, I think, having taken pole position. Look at Rosberg. He's caught the pack, and now what does he do? There ain't that much room around here. Yellow flag waving at the hairpin as well, Andrew.
Yeah, well, that corner where the bridge is over the track is called the Pont Oscar. That's the Oscar Bridge. James Hunt used to have a dog called Oscar.
Briscoe leading then as they drop downhill with, in second place, chasing after him, Olivier Plat. Alexandre Premat in third, and then Nicolas Lapierre in fourth place. And Lapierre looking for a way back.
Very slippery, David, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they're on wet tyres, granted, but they're, as yet, cold wet tyres. So it's going to be, and you can see, having already had a mistake from Rosberg, that you've got to keep a level head on these first few laps. That's critical to the rest of the race. You can't push too hard too soon. Olivier Plat, with his greater circuit knowledge, giving Briscoe a very hard time. They come across the line side by side. Olivier Plat in the silver and blue car, not quite able to get past Briscoe. Ryan Briscoe is leading. Up into third place has come Lapierre, look, recovering after his bad start.
Yeah, tremendous start to this race. Briscoe doing an excellent job leading this race. Briscoe, Plat, Lapierre, Premat, Carboni, Winkelhock, Doornbos and Abadi, who went well in the last round we saw. And all the cars twitching about on this damp circuit here in the Gascony area of France. And I just wonder if Briscoe is going to be able to fend off the charging Frenchman behind him.
At the moment, the circuit looking as though it's drying out, and therefore I think before long we'll see people aiming for the wet parts of the circuit to keep the tyres cool. What we don't know, of course, is which way people have guessed on the weather. Have they thought it's going to dry and set the car up accordingly, or have they thought it's going to get wetter still and set the car up for that sort of weather condition? At the moment, we've got three of them running together for the lead, with Lapierre getting away from Premat now and starting to catch the top two.
Some of the curbing here is quite vicious, David, but that particular spot we just saw, you can curb hop quite a lot. There's one of the abandoned Formula 3 cars together with an abandoned French sports cars. So I think that's one of the Suzuki powered machines that they race in France.
Yeah, the Formula France cars. Yes, I was going to say the first casualty then, or another casualty we've had, that car stopping down the hill, but the leaders in the meantime thread their way between the barriers. Ryan Briscoe still the man in charge, and this time I think he's getting away, is he not? The gap looks as though it's opened up a little bit between Briscoe and the rest of them, and then Briscoe slides his way to the corner, makes a mistake, the gap's going to come down a little bit. The man on the charge at the moment, though, is Lapierre. He's going really well. Briscoe, Plat, Lapierre, first, second and third. Premat fourth, Fabio Carboni fifth, Winkelhock sixth, Robert Doornbos going well in seventh, and Simone Abadai is in eighth at the moment.
And you can see all these fabulous vantage points where they see the cars twitching their way around this post-circuit. 26 laps altogether for this race. Actually, two races over this weekend, as is normal with Euro Formula 3. And we have another retirement here, and it's Clean. Christian Clean comes in, the Austrian driver. And this looks like the end of his race. Maybe that's... We normally have transmission problems with Formula 3 cars. There doesn't appear to be any suspension damage on the car.
But Christian Clean out of the race, as in the meantime, the race leader Ryan Briscoe comes down the hill and sliding a little bit wide. Olivier Pla up on the curb to try and find a way past him. Nicolas Lapierre, he couldn't do so. And as a consequence of not being able to make that manoeuvre stick, so the gap has opened up just a little bit. It's very frustrating though at the moment, Andrew, seemingly for the drivers. They want to go quicker, but the weather conditions just aren't allowing it.
So the Red Bull driver climbs out of his Dallara. Every car in this race a Dallara. And have we been able to check on the computer yet where Jamie Green is lying? Just outside the top 10, I think.
Yeah, still adapting to, for him, of course, a new circuit. And still learning about Formula 3. He's only in his first season in a Formula 3 car, his second full year of car racing as well. Green, an impressive man, but so too is Ryan Briscoe. Nurtured, of course, by the Toyota Formula 1 team. And he goes wide, he goes very, very wide, leaves the door wide open. Olivier Pla takes the lead. That was a mistake from Briscoe, wasn't it?
That certainly was, but a long way to go yet. But Pla looking good. So the 21-year-old from Toulouse. Pla, of course, won the Korean Formula 3 race at the end of last year, and that's a street circuit of sorts. Basically, it's a road round the outside of a football stadium, very different from this, though. And here you see that curb hopping again. To get a decent time, you've really got to take a lot of curb there, but that one isn't vicious at all.
Now, Ryan Briscoe, having lost the lead, he's looking a bit rattled here. He's having to be very defensive to keep Lapierre at bay. Lapierre has also got Premat tucked up behind him. And Ryan Briscoe, you could argue, was holding up Olivier Pla, because now that the Frenchman has taken the lead, he's getting away.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. He does look a little bit rattled now. He's lost his momentum. And, well, now, of course, he's under pressure from second place. And meanwhile, while he watches in his mirrors, Pla is motoring away from them.
That's right, so three of them then running nose to tail now for second, third and fourth places. Ryan Briscoe, Lapierre, then Alexandre Premat. They're all nose to tail. Join us again here after the break.
Fabulous street circuits here at Pau in the Gascony area of France, and Olivier Pla leads from Ryan Briscoe, who David Addison, we reckon, is a little bit rattled.
He was leading, he made a mistake, he lost the lead, and now he's under real pressure. Nicolas Lapierre looking for a way past him, and look at this, Alexandre Premat trying to surge up on the inside, wheel to wheel on a wet road, and Premat now is the man on the charge. Can he get ahead of Lapierre? Look back, that's Pla, that's Briscoe. Who's third? Is it going to be Premat? Yes, it is, I think. Alexandre Premat goes third, and Nicolas Lapierre now slips back to fourth place. That was a good move by Premat.
Interesting, David, that two of the top three guys did race here last year in Formula Renault, and I think there's a lot of local knowledge around here.
And it shows, doesn't it? But therefore, Ryan Briscoe's efforts are pretty impressive. Up the inside again, tries to go Nicolas Lapierre, and Ryan Briscoe accelerating his way now downhill. Very sideways, Nicolas Lapierre, and Lapierre in turn is now taking with him there the car of Marcus Winkelhock. So another good scrap is shaping up, but Olivier Pla building up this lead very impressively.
Still, we have this situation with the track drying out. We think there might be a rain shower before it's over. Everyone on the grooved wet tyres, as you can see, as they sweep past the pits here and down again into the station hairpin. And Briscoe still under pressure.
Briscoe's still holding up cars, I reckon. You saw the way that Olivier Pla got past him, now has done the fastest lap of the race and has built up the lead, and Pla's teammate Premat is now having the same fate in a sense. He's stuck there behind Ryan Briscoe. He hasn't yet found a gap, and it's very frustrating this, because he knows that the leader is getting away while he's stuck there behind the Sydney-sider.
Just look at the curb there, you see, David, that can break away, and second place there. Well, he goes to fourth, Briscoe, and there's some dodgems going on as well.
That's quite a big whack there for Ryan Briscoe, as Nicolas Lapierre got past him as well. So it's Pla, Premat, Lapierre, Briscoe now the top four, and Ryan Briscoe is still fighting, because Winkelhock now fancies his chances of getting past as well. Certain parts of the circuit drier than others, this a drier part of the road, and you can see the fight on now. Ryan Briscoe coming under real pressure, Winkelhock and Carboni tucked up with him.
Well, we've seen him motor away from the field in previous races, but this is all very different. The young Sydney-sider, as you say, David, has won 3 of the 4 races in this championship thus far, and this is one that it looks he isn't going to win. Well, we'll see what he's made of as this race continues, and Olivier Pla looking very good indeed. Lapierre obviously could be a challenge too.
Winkelhock and Carboni running together as well in the background there. Alexandra Premat has got work to do, though, to bring down the gap to the leader. Oh dear, it's still slippery out there. We've had the change, though. Carboni ahead of Winkelhock now.
Blas driving for the ASM team, one of the very best French Formula 3 teams. They do have some very good teams based in France. Signature, of course, another of those top teams.
I'm just looking to see what Alexandra Premat, the man in second place, can do, if anything, about the race leader. Olivier Pla, the quickest man on the circuit, trying to build up the lead, but is Premat going to be able to start chipping away at those lap times? He's taking with him Nicolas Lapierre. Ryan Briscoe, he's not losing touch with them, he's staying there in fourth place. Clipping the curb, left, then right. Briscoe drops downhill. Fabio Carboni, then Marcus Winkelhock catching up a little bit as well now.
Yes, David, you can't see it that well on the television screen, but there's huge amounts of elevation change here at Pau. Very similar in that respect to Monaco. So a lot of people reckon this is a better street circuit than Monaco. Obviously, it doesn't have the harbour, but it's a pure racing circuit. And that was a black marker being gobbled up, wasn't it?
Interesting to see the way that Pla does it so decisively. He's not hanging around, is he? He can't afford to think, well, I'll just try on the slightly wider pit straight. He's going to go for it when he has the opportunity. Pla knows he's got some tough opposition in this race. He also knows he's got to build up the lead. Nicolas Lapierre sliding the car out of the corner. That's the order. Pla, Premat, Lapierre, Briscoe, Carboni, Winkelhock. That's the top six, and six very talented drivers there as well. The quality of driving in this championship is very impressive, Andrew.
Now look at the victory. Look at the margin between first and second place has opened out to 3 seconds. And that's a big margin. I just wonder if Premat can do anything about this. But it is still very early days, 7 laps in, just coming up to quarter distance.
The cars head up the hill then. Ryan Briscoe still trying to get himself back onto terms now with Nicolas Lapierre, but if anything, Briscoe coming under pressure, I think, now, from Fabio Carboni. It's work, isn't it, this circuit, all the time? It's a very demanding track for the drivers.
Yep. For many years, of course, this was the blue ribbon race of Formula 3000, and before that, Formula 2. Then Mr. Eccleston decided it didn't fit in with his vision of Formula 3000, so Formula 3 has taken over, and in the tight confines of Pau, you know, these cars look absolutely sensational.
The new best lap of the race there to Fabio Carboni, a 1:25.7, and Carboni is certainly charging. He's almost now up onto terms with Ryan Briscoe. What we really want to see, though, is the gap between the top two. It was over 3 seconds. Is Alexandra Premat bringing it down? That's Marcus Winkelhock getting all sideways. The circuit not drying out in certain parts as quickly as the drivers would like it to, I think, and a lot of opposite lot being applied at times.
Now, there will be a lot of camber on some of these races. Look at that, more! Ryan Briscoe made another mistake there. He just hasn't got the grip, has he?
Lost a place. Carboni goes ahead of him now. The Brazilian driver there moves through, takes the place away from the Australian, who is right up behind him. Fabio Carboni in the Signature Plus car, the Dallara Renault. A new best lap to Alexandra Premat now, 1:25. That is a very good lap, 25.1. That means, of course, that he's brought the gap down a little bit between himself and the race leader, Olivier Pla.
Yeah, Carboni, another man who's won one of these top Formula 3 races, won at the Marlborough Masters at Zandvoort last year. Very different circuit to this, although a historic circuit in its own way.
That's right, the former home of the Dutch Grand Prix. Pla you saw, Premat you see as he heads off down the hill, taking Lapierre with him now.
Just mentioned the word Grand Prix there. The very first motor race ever to be called a Grand Prix was at this Pau venue in 1901. It's the first race they ever actually called a Grand Prix.
And you were there with your notebook in your hand reporting, were you, Andrew?
Oh, yes.
Olivier Pla, the race leader, making his way uphill. Behind him, though, and you can see that gap is tumbling. Second place man Alexandra Premat is catching up all the while, and he's taking with him Nicolas Lapierre. So although Pla did exactly the right thing, he shot away, having got past Briscoe, and he tried to build up the lead. That lead is soon now being gobbled up. Great drive by Premat, this.
Absolutely. One thing we haven't mentioned, David, is the fact, and you see the three-pointed star on the front of the blue and white leader's car. That is using Mercedes-Benz horsepower. This is the first year Mercedes-Benz have been in Formula 3, and there is the gap. Now it's down to 1.7 seconds.
Alexandre Premat then going great guns. He set the best lap of the race. He's bringing down the gap between himself and the leader, his teammate Olivier Pla. In third place, Nicolas Lapierre. Lapierre, had it not been for that daft start, I think would have been more of a threat in this race. He was quickest in free practice, quickest in the qualifying session for this first of the two races at Pau. Is he now going to be able to work his way up the order? He's virtually there, isn't he, on the tail of Premat now?
Just had a good shot there of a Marshall. Looks as if we've been doing it for a few years.
Leaders across the line, as Andrew's been saying, a great circuit this, and of course a street circuit with all its many nuances. Unspoilt though this, there's no gravel traps to worry about, there's relatively little even in the way of sponsors' hoardings. There you can see quite a few banners, but at the other parts of the circuit it's pure natural street racing. That's the top six: Pla, Premat, Lapierre, Carboni, Briscoe and then Winkelhock.
When I came here first, David, it was a long time ago, there was no Armco barrier, it was all lined with straw bales.
The safety's come on a lot, and so is this race. Look, in the sense now that we have three leading cars nose to tail. Olivier Pla, then Alexandre Premat, and then Nicolas Lapierre. I'm fascinated to know what it is about Premat's car that is so much better than Pla's, because he's been able to bring down that gap with alacrity, and now the two of them are running together.
I'm just wondering if Pla's damaged his tyres by just pushing too hard in these wet, dry conditions here. I'm just trying to see if he's maybe scrubbed a lot of tread off the rear there and just isn't getting the grip anymore.
Lapierre having a look to get past Premat. Premat now under real pressure in terms of trying to get the lead and keep second place.
And lots of sideways motoring going on all round this track.
Yeah, but the whole thing lends itself, doesn't it? Partly the track itself, partly the weather conditions, partly this sort of car. The mechanics rush out with the pit boards, and somebody in trouble there going no further. That's going to, well, the Marshall's in a very awkward place, of course, because it's a blind corner hidden by that barrier on the inside. Just looking to see, that's Daniel La Rosa's car, I think, that's stationary. The fear now, of course, is that that might need a safety car. Let's see, the yellow flags are being waved. The drivers are going to know about the impending problem. And it's right on the racing line as well, so if the engine has stalled, that's going to be very hard for the Marshals, of course, to move, because what they're going to have to do is sprint across the track. There's a safety car board in the background going out there. The safety car will be on track. Daniel La Rosa's had a moment to stall the engine. The car is on the racing line.
And it's a Rover. My goodness, oh, it's an MG, actually.
That's right.
Same thing.
The safety car is out on track, and that means everybody now will bunch up behind. And having said that Olivier Pla's lead was being eroded, well, very definitely it will be eroded now, because the cars will all bunch up behind. The Marshals will quickly be able to get La Rosa's car out of the way, but the problem is that they can't do it under normal race conditions, because there are so many cars circulating and there are gaps between them. What this will do is bunch all the cars up in one nice long line. The Marshals can then safely get Daniel La Rosa's car out of the way, and then we can be back in business once again.
Good for Ryan Briscoe.
It is.
Close up that gap again. La Rosa, another of these teenagers, just another 17-year-old driving for the Prema Power team.
And he's dropped down into fifth place, Ryan Briscoe, just to make the point about the man that was leading early on. So at the restart he has got an awful lot of work to do in the Opel powered car, and you'll be able to see the restart here after the break.
The pace car is about to peel off into the pit lane. The race will be on again, David Addison, and what a battle we've had thus far. We should just add that Jamie Green has retired from this part one.
Pretty late decision by that safety car to come in. The lights were still on even when it came out of the last corner, so I think that's caught one or two drivers on the hop. But anyway, the race is back underway. The order: Olivier Pla, Alexandre Premat, his teammate, they are first and second. In third place, Nicolas Lapierre. In fourth place, Fabio Carboni. And in fifth place now is Ryan Briscoe, as the cars head off once more. We're on lap 14 now, with Marcus Winkelhock sixth, Timo Glock seventh, and Simon Abadai in eighth place. Briscoe led early on, made a couple of mistakes, and has gradually been elbowed down the field.
There has been just a little sprinkling of rain again. Just saw it on the lens a moment ago. There's still partially a dry line, so weather maybe will spring a few surprises yet. And there is Ryan Briscoe in the red and white car in fifth place, the man who led early on. Glock, who we saw winning earlier in the year at Adria. Glock in the Opel-coloured and Opel-powered car. Down past the ramparts again.
Bit of a mistake made as they came down the hill that time by Nicolas Lapierre, and it means that because he went wide, he's now got his teammate Fabio Carboni tucked right up behind him. Up front then, the two ASM F3 cars of Platt and Premat, I think, are getting away a little bit. The other man to watch, and he's been held by the safety car, of course, is Timo Glock, who is now right up with this leading group once more. Yes, indeed. I thought Briscoe starting to look a bit more racy. He was pulling out to try and look for fourth place, but decided discretion was the better part of valour. And look at the way that Premat now is attacking his teammate, Olivier Pla, defending his line. Right up with him now is Alexandre Premat. Nose to tail, these two, and Premat certainly looking very threatening indeed. He tries one side and then the other. Climbing uphill once again. What have we got? The top 8 cars pretty much now running as one on the road. One great long queue and then a huge gap between them and anybody else. Nicolas Lapierre retaliating. He's joining back in with the top 2, isn't he now? Yes, and definitely there's a sprinkling of rain now. This circuit is getting more and more tricky, and it's bad enough as it is when it's dry. Well, at least they're on wet tyres, because of course they started on wets. They haven't got to try and tiptoe around on slicks. But as the circuit gets ever more greasy, now we'll see who the brave drivers and the sensible drivers are. Fabio Carboni then, at the moment, in 3rd place. He's got himself ahead of Nicolas Lapierre, therefore, and Lapierre slipping into 4th. Briscoe tucked up behind him in 5th place. Carboni going well now. For those of you not totally versed in Formula 3, just David, we should explain what the items are to the side of the engine. That's the airbox there. It's a sealed airbox. All the air for Formula 3 cars has to pass through an orifice which is checked, and that restricts the amount of air going into the engine, but they try and make those plenum chambers as aerodynamic as they can, and depending on what engine you've got, the type of cylinder head, you might have it on either the left or right side of the engine. I think that's orifice. Oh, there's contact! Round goes Carboni. He's been hit by Lapierre. The teammates tangle. Fabio Carboni punted into a spin. I think Ryan Briscoe was trying to find a way past Lapierre. Lapierre wanted to get past Carboni, who he thought was holding him up a little bit. The net result is that the Brazilian has been tipped into a spin. Well, he's got the car fired up again. Fabio Carboni rejoins. And he's going to be fired up now. He's not going to be happy with that. Tipped into a spin by his teammate. And look, Briscoe has benefited most. He's up into 3rd place. Lapierre has delayed himself no end, tripping over Carboni. So, battle on. Platt, Premat, Briscoe. Down the hill they come, and Ryan Briscoe all of a sudden looks as though he's like a new man, doesn't he? From languishing 5th a few laps ago, suddenly he's back up there and bidding for 2nd place. Bit of luck, we'll get a replay here. It comes. What did you think? 2 incidents. Briscoe was leaving his braking very late to get past Lapierre. Maybe Lapierre was a bit distracted by that in his mirrors, but certainly he missed his braking point and definitely hit the back of Carboni. Not Carboni's fault. I think Lapierre may have been a bit distracted, but I would put the blame more at his doorstep than anybody else's for that. Meanwhile, the man we are watching now is Ryan Briscoe on a very big charge. Pla, Premat, Briscoe, Winkelhock, Glock and Carboni actually got going again in 6th place by our timing screen. So there must have been a big gap between him and the rest of the field, those 6 pulling out. But we've lost Lapierre. I think the damage that his car sustained has probably put him out of the race now. So from pole position, Nicolas Lapierre in trouble. More yellow flags being waved there. Yeah, we did see another incident going on just to the side of our screen. Couldn't see who it was. Well, Olivier Pla is leading. Is he going to be able to stay in the lead? Briscoe for 2nd place. He touches in. There's contact. Premat spins. That shows you how wet and greasy the circuit has become. Here it is again. You see, when he hit the curb, it pushed him back in, didn't it? And that pushed him. I still think he came in a bit too quick. Yeah. Ryan Briscoe being a little bit gung-ho there, and Alexandre Premat is the casualty. Yeah, there will be words afterwards. So, when he rejoined us after the break, he was 5th. He's now 2nd, Ryan Briscoe, and that is Alexandre Premat. Body language says it all. Doesn't it ever? He's going to shake his fist, isn't he? Well, I don't think that was his fault particularly. He'd driven very well, monstering Pla. The circuit getting a little bit wetter. Briscoe clearly has a car that goes well in the wetter conditions. He's making the most of that, but I think that manoeuvre was just a little bit optimistic.
optimistic, but it worked for him. As long as the stewards don't penalise him, he's the man who's got a smile on his face.
And so too has Timo Glock, because Glock is now up into third. He was 8th after the break when he rejoined us here at Po. He's up into third place now, and if these two hold each other up, he's going to be up there and fighting as well.
Well, Briscoe wants to add another victory to his resume, doesn't he? He really is pushing hard now.
He's got a good chance of doing so as well. You've seen how determined he is. Ryan Briscoe then in second place, Timo Glock third. And down the hill come the leaders. Olivier Pla in the lead. But for how much longer? Briscoe goes one side and then the other. Side by side across the line. Does Briscoe lead at the corner? Yes! What a move!
That was a fantastic move. Absolutely perfect. And then down into the hairpin. Well, this boy, Toyota, I think, might have a find here. Obviously, there was a situation with him last year. Oh, we see this move again, David. The perfect feint to the right and then going all the way around the long side on the fast Pitts left-hander there. And his team will have got a good view of that. I was just going on to say that last year when he was pushed into Formula 3000 by Toyota, he really was struggling a bit. But now we can see that this kid really does have talent.
Well, Ryan Briscoe has been the man to beat this year in the new F3 EuroSeries. He's going to take some stopping now because having got ahead of Pla, he's pulling away once again. It's been a fascinating race, this. We've had an awful lot of action going on throughout it. Olivier Pla making his way down the hill. The surviving car now at the ASM team.
And now I think he's starting to dry out a bit more. Difficult to tell.
Yeah, I mean, some parts of the circuit, those that are shielded by the leaves on the trees, have never really been properly wet, and therefore you've had some parts that have been drier than others. But yes, I don't think you can really rely on what the weather is going to be like at the same corner 2 laps running at the moment. Briscoe in and among the traffic. There's another obstacle he's got to overcome, of course. He knows what he is doing. What he needs to make sure of is the traffic doesn't make a mistake, and there's a spin in the background. Now, was that Glock possibly getting it wrong? It was certainly one of the Opel cars. One of the Team KMS cars you just saw spinning in the background. It could have been Glock.
Still,
it was Glock.
Yeah, still the odd drop of water on our lens there. Climbing up the hill again, past the school. And Carboni has worked his way back into 4th place.
And Hironaka going well, also into the top 6, but a good recovery this by Fabio Carboni. I don't really think we ever saw the best of him in the British F3 Championship last year. I know he was quick on occasions, but he wasn't really as good as I think Carboni's talent would ultimately prove.
Yeah, Hironaka comes from Hokkaido, just near the Suzuki track. Had a very successful karting career. But
Ryan Briscoe now looking unstoppable. He's managed to get himself into the lead of the race. He's getting away from the opposition. He comes across the line now looking ever more secure for a win. Second place man comes across the line now, which is Olivier Pla. But a race of changing fortunes. Briscoe early on, then Pla having the upper hand, and ultimately it swings back in favour of the Australian. The circuit getting ever more treacherous, and Ryan Briscoe thinking, why did I leave Australia for this sort of weather? Well, the reason he left was to further his career, and with the help of Toyota, he's a young man who's going places. He's taken on the French on their own home turf here, of course, and he's set for a win, it seems, Andrew.
Certainly is. And I would just urge everyone, if they're looking for a nice motor racing holiday, and they've done the Monacos of this world, Po is a superb town as well. There's some great hotels, superb restaurants, and a wonderful backdrop to the motor racing. We are here in the foothills of the Pyrenees, in the Gascony area of France, and really could have a great motor racing holiday.
Well, it's been no holiday for Ryan Briscoe, but he's enjoyed himself nonetheless, and he turns his way now through the final few corners of Po on target for win number 4 out of 5 rounds of the F3 EuroSeries. Led early on, made a couple of mistakes, slipped down to 5th, has fought back. He's been pretty aggressive in his driving, but he's going to be up front when it counts. Olivier Pla set to chase him home in 2nd place. Timo Glock recovering in 3rd. Checkered flag at the ready. Ryan Briscoe comes across the line to win here at Po. Second is Pla. Timo Glock finishing third, and then Carboni, Abadai and Hironaka round out the top six. Another very impressive drive by Ryan Briscoe.
Absolutely the word too for the Prema Power Team organisation who prepared this car. In fact, Briscoe now lives in Viareggio in Italy. That's where he's based these days. The young Sydney-sider made such an impact in karting, and he is obviously pleased with that. The marshals appreciate it too. And just finishing then his victory lap here around this historic circuit. Confirmation, David, of the result there.
Briscoe, Pla, Glock, Carboni, Abadai, Hironaka the top six. Margaritis 7th, and Robert Dornbus coming home in 8th place. You can see the engines there on the result board. They're all driving to Lara's. But Ryan Briscoe has mastered a totally alien circuit. He's mastered a street circuit. He's mastered difficult and changing weather conditions, and he's had a 4th win out of 5 races in the F3 EuroSeries. A very impressive effort indeed by the Australian. Olivier Pla, I think, can feel a little bit disappointed not to have won. He did do a very good middle part of that race, and your heart goes out to some extent for Alexandre Premat, because of course he was going well until there was the contact as a charging Briscoe muscled his way past.
And the word is that the stewards considered that a racing incident, so there won't be any penalty for Ryan. And here he is, just being shown towards the victory podium. Thank you,
Adam Smith, he's on pole position.